Welcome to the T Show.
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 And this is TTT together. Welcome to the T Show.
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 And this is TTT together. I am so excited for you all to listen to today's episode. We have two amazing guests, my great friends, Roxie and Virginia. And on today's episode, we're going to be talking about sustainable fashion, self-expression through thrifting, and how you can visually express yourself authentically and creatively with confidence and intention. So I'm drinking some Chaud tea today. What are you guys drinking?
Looks delicious. I'm drinking, it's a Persian black tea, but with orange blossom petals in it.
That looks awesome.
That's so fancy. I'm drinking sweet tea ice.
Representing the South.
Representing the South very well.
Yeah. To give a little bit an intro on Virginia and Roxie, these are both my really good friends and who I think have amazing creative expressions. You guys both have like the dopest attitude, and just the vibe is real with you guys. So I really wanted you guys on the podcast and just talk about everything, from sustainable fashion. You guys are really into that, all the way into to mindset and confidence, and pursuing what's passion to all of us. And so let's start by before we're talking on this, we were saying that we can start by sharing stories on how we all met.
Yeah, I would. Oh no, go ahead. You go ahead.
I was going to tell the story of how me and Virginia met, which is a really, really cute one. And it's a testament to taking chances and being confident.
Let's do it.
And clothes.
And clothes and self-expression. Okay, here we go.
Yeah,
so
go.
It was like orientation week, and they did that freshman breakfast where we all go to, I think, Benson and get breakfast, and they're supposed to meet people. And I hadn't really made any friends yet. And I was sitting at a table with the one person from my high school that also went to Wake that I already knew. Mm-hmm. And I was just sitting there and I was like, you know what? Like, screw it. I'm just going to find an empty table or a table with an empty seat and sit down at that random seat. And I'm going to make myself meet people, which was, at that time, I was kind of shy. So it was out of my comfort zone. And so I did. I took that leap. I sat down, boom, met the best friends that I'd make in college, like just on the fly. And I noticed them kind of because of their cool outfits. Like Virginia, I remember, was wearing a really cool t-shirt. And we just immediately hit it off, and we've been best friends ever since.
Yeah, to go off of that, Roxie was also wearing a really cool outfit. My favorite color is red. If you're my friend, you know this. I wear that all the time. And Roxie was wearing a total monochrome outfit, like red, head to toe, earrings, matching with like a red shirt, red dress. Like, she looked fire. And of course, like, the first thing I said when she came up, like, "Hi, I'm Roxie. Like, can I sit here?" I was like, "Oh my God, I'm obsessed with your outfit." And like, I can remember exactly what she was wearing that day. So like what she just said, it's a testament to just, first of all, taking the leap of faith and just going and pursuing, whether that's going to sit down with new people or just like pursuing a job opportunity or anything like that. But also, yeah, express yourself in the best way possible. You'll, attract the right people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think Virginia and I met over Dr. Lamb's class.
Yeah, we were in intro level first year seminar, and ours was philosophy based, and it was like one of the coolest classes, or at least I know I could probably speak for both of us when I say it's probably one of like the most coolest eye-opening class I've taken at Wake Forest yet.
Yeah, it's probably by far up there in my top 3 favorite classes. Like,
yeah.
It was
the whole like premise of it was human connection, and like the class itself, for like those who don't know, it was a first year seminar called Commencing Character, and it was all about where we study like Aristotle's virtues and vices, and we would study them by not only just like reading the books they wrote, but also studying commencement speeches that had to do with those virtues and how people executed them in their own life and life stories. And like our final for the class was we had to write a commencement speech and deliver it to the class.
Yeah.
And which is really cool. And so, I mean, whether we liked it or not, it was definitely some forced friendships because we were just all so vulnerable. And I remember absolutely loving what Will had to say every single class. I remember he also had the coolest jewelry. I love chains and like silver jewelry, if you can tell. So I always would tell him he looked awesome like every other day. And yeah, we've just maintained that friendship ever since. So I'm lucky to have him.
Absolutely. And
me and Will, we met through Virginia, kind of. Well, yeah. So
I fostered that. I will take credit for that
you
one.
sure did.
Me and Will were
Tea.
both getting really into tea at the same time, like independently. And Virginia was like, okay, Roxy, I see you're getting really into tea. My friend Will is also really into tea and he's starting a tea club. Like maybe be into it. So I DM'd him and we kind of got it together and worked on the club together. But obviously through that, we became really good friends because we had that like shared interest in culture, in like connecting with people through tea. And it's like, there's no better way to make a close friend than sitting down and having tea with them every week and just talking about everything.
No, real talk though, like having tea really like makes you a lot closer. Like I just drank a cup of tea together. It's like it's the same as like if you were to ask your friend to have a cup of coffee, but with tea is like because of the brews, they last for such a long time. At least with good tea, it lasts such a long time, and like it just allows for the same time while you're tasting tea to really get to know who you're having tea with. And I think that's
Right.
that's the idea spawned behind the tea club at school.
Yeah, Will, we always say like in our meetings and like when we advertise our club, tea is like the vessel in which, or like it's a vessel that fosters that communication between people. So we've made a lot of really good friends through the tea club for the exact reasons that you said.
Right.
Is the tea brings us together and facilitates conversations that you would have never had with that person otherwise.
No, not at all. And you can always learn a lot about someone. And, talking about learning about people, I really want to learn more about, what sustainable fashion means to both of you, since I see that you guys are huge advocates of, pursuing that aspect of self-expression.
Yeah. All right, I got to get Roxy to start on this one. She sets this up way too nicely whenever someone asks. So you go ahead and do your whole thing.
Okay. Well, for some background, I mean, I've just been into sustainability and fashion for a really long time. But my freshman year, I was in a leadership for sustainability class, and I did my semester-long project on sustainable fashion, more specifically secondhand clothing. So I've got kind of like an arsenal of, like some facts. But really, sustainable fashion is important for, I would say, like 3 main reasons about the clothing industry. One, the production of clothing is really resource intensive. There's a fact, you might have seen it on the internet, it kind of circulated a while ago. It takes 2,700 liters of water to make one cotton t-shirt, which is insane. Not only that, but the industry in the production of clothing is highly polluting. So the global apparel and footwear industry releases 4 metric gigatons of CO2 into the atmosphere.
I can't even imagine how large that is.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So it's like, not only is all this pollution happening from the production of clothing, but the waste of clothing is also creating emissions through landfill mass accumulation and just production of emissions from the discard of clothing. So it's really sad because the recycling rate for textiles is so low. I think in 2015, it was about 15.3% of clothing was recycled. Another like statistic that blows my mind, the average American throws away 81 pounds of clothing a year. Like that is insane to me.
I mean, I believe it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I know a lot of my friends have always grown up in a household where like when you're done with clothes, of course you go donate them to Goodwill or something. But you don't realize a lot of people don't really grow up in that environment where like that's the mentality. But this literally, like this fact, this last one is the craziest one in my opinion. 3/5 or 60% of clothing produced ends up in incinerators and landfill within 1 year of being made. So all this clothing is being produced, all these emissions are being made, all these resources are being used, only for the majority of everything produced being thrown out within a year of it being produced. So
Wow.
that's why sustainability is so important to me, or in general.
I mean, I was just about to say that. I mean, obviously all those facts are really important, especially with just, entering and understanding and coming to sustainable fashion, like with the mentality that of like an environmentalist perspective. But the last one, just knowing that people, like the marketing and the whole business side of fashion, is staying on top of trends, making the coolest things, making what people want right now. But to think about how a year from now, the piece and the items and like everything that's being produced, and like, so all these like major fashion brands that are labeled as fast fashion being like what Roxy was just saying, items being totally just thrown away and disregarded a year from now, it's somewhat heartbreaking, knowing that like all of this energy, manpower, and like natural resources are being used and expended on it like an insane amount, like on an insane level, only for it to just be wasted in a few months' time.
And that is not specific to just clothing. Like that's a problem with consumerism and industry in general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right now, like I feel like we're seeing this shift for all items. Instead of making things, taking a long time to make something of quality, it's more, factory-based, push out as many items as you can for as few costs as you can to maximize profits, and then make them in a way that either by marketing trends passing or making clothing that doesn't last very long, so that everything you're buying you have to constantly replace. And that's just this big issue we have with consumerism in Western society. But even from a non-environmental standpoint, from like a self-expression standpoint, I think thrifting gives you like more agency over your style and your consumption of clothing.
Totally agree.
Yeah, this is something people, I think, kind of look over because the environment stuff is so important. But like when you go to a retail store, a whole lot of people are making decisions for you on what you're going to wear. Right. Somebody designs it, then somebody, buys it from that designer, whatever, produces it, and then each retail store like kind of curates their own section. And you go to a store and there's 50 of the same shirt. And then you buy one because they told you that was what's in fashion. But when you thrift, you're like the curator of your own style, which I think is super fun. Yeah. Like everything in a secondhand store, besides stores that like selectively buy, is there completely randomly, like full entropy, which is so cool because nobody is making any choices for you on what you should be wearing. And like, I love that. You get to choose what looks fashionable. You get to choose what goes together. And I think you end up with a lot more personalized style and a lot more like agency as a consumer.
Wow. So there's it's a multi-dimensional aspect for you, like, the environmental factor and the waste and the consumption. That's a really big problem in terms of how much we're throwing out and how much material is being wasted. But at the same time, thrifting for your clothes is also a great way to express yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, like, kind of going off of that, I can say, like, confidently, like, take this for what you will. When I started thrifting in high school, like, probably like my freshman, sophomore year, I started not with the intention of like, oh, I'm making an ethical choice, I'm gonna help the environment. Like, that wasn't where I was coming from, just because I wasn't educated on the topic. It wasn't until I got into thrifting did I realize the benefits and realize like how I was being an ethical consumer in that manner. I started wholeheartedly because I loved fashion growing up. I'm from a small community in Eastern North Carolina, and there is not a lot of like big name brands where I'm from. And so if I wanted to shop, I would have to drive to like Raleigh, I would do Charlotte, or I would do like Greensboro, Winston-Salem area. And like being someone, especially when I didn't have my license, that wasn't an option. I couldn't go like shopping trips and stuff, or I would have to get stuff shipped. And I wasn't working at the time, so I didn't have that kind of money to spend on clothes and to buy things. So I started thrifting a lot in my hometown, and believe it or not, a small community where, I mean, I'm from like 10,000 people. It isn't like there's a large income either. So it isn't like there wasn't a lot of like designer pieces that were in my local Goodwill of Salvation Army. It was just the fact that I was able to find, like what Roxy was saying, pieces that actually, you know, fit my identity and fit how I was trying to portray myself to the world. So that for me is what brought me into sustainable fashion and secondhand shopping. And through that avenue of just wanting to express myself better through clothing and fashion, was I able to, after like what all these facts that Roxy just said, educate myself on the subject, and really made me stick with it and realize this is awesome. I feel like everyone should be exposed to this. And even if you choose to, like, I can't say I'm a perfect consumer. I'm definitely buying from fast fashion every once in a while. I'll you know, spend some money on some awesome sneakers that I've been saving up for a while. Like no one loves shoes more than I do. But when I can, I try to make a more ethical consumer choice with secondhand shopping. So
I think that's a really interesting point, because it's like, I think it's impossible to be an ethical consumer. Like,
it's
just
true.
the society that we live in, you would have to go basically like be Amish, you know, it's impossible at this point. No, seriously.
No, it's
like,
true. You would have to go to the nth degree to actually like label yourself as like, oh, I'm an
Right.
ethical consumer. But
Right.
doing what you can makes a bigger difference than people realize.
Right. And part of it is like, you can't be a perfect ethical consumer, but you have to do what you can so that people who maybe are less fortunate than you are able to participate, I guess, in fast fashion, buy cheap clothes. So it's like, I might have the resources to spend $50 on like an organically made, sustainably sourced t-shirt. Someone else might not. So to limit the impact of our combined actions, if you are a person that has enough money or resources to shop sustainably, then you should. So the people that can't, there's not as much burden on them that they don't really have that control over.
I agree completely, and especially with you talking about like the organically, you know, sourced like materials and whatnot. That's what's so frustrating about like consumerism, especially fashion. The items that are ethically made, and which of course, like I totally get it. You know, I understand the business component of it. People got to make money. These materials are not cheap, but the stuff that is sustainably made can be like so expensive and not attainable for people like an everyday person. I mean, there's like what she just said, like a $50 t-shirt, that would be considered like somewhat cheap if it was made sustainably, just because of the way they're actually paying the people that make it. They're actually running the facilities like legally and getting people like that are working and that, you know, actually doing it in a proper, humane manner. And then also using materials that are sustainably sourced to create the clothing item. And that in itself, like, if you could go through a list like online of just all of those like, you know, facets I just listed, it makes sense why it would be so expensive. But that's again why just like consumerism, and especially in Western culture, it is not welcoming to something like that, because it isn't like there's a large majority of people that can afford that. So that's why, as Roxy was just saying, being able to shop secondhand like that, you were still able to make an impact and, you know,
and not spend a ton of money.
Exactly, and actually not spend a ton of money. Like there have been times where me and Roxy have like hit up the Goodwill off the University Parkway. God bless that Goodwill near Wake Forest. If anyone listening hasn't been yet, please go. It's fire. I have not had a bad trip since attending Wake Forest. I mean, we can go in there, spend $20, and I will easily pick up over 10 items, whether shirt, pants, jewelry, like all kinds of stuff. And like if I did that at, I mean, I don't want to drop like a name or anything. I don't know if we will get sued for his podcast or something. But if you go to the mall and you go to some store, like you will most likely maybe be able to get like a cheaper or like on sale T-shirt or something. Not nearly like items that you would pick out like in that kind of quantity. So just like going off of that, that's kind of like more background information on sustainable shopping.
Did you guys get into this? I think you mentioned this earlier, Virginia. But did you get into thrifting for clothes out of because of this purpose of sustainable, representing sustainable fashion, or is it more to find a unique style? Because lately there's been a lot of trends of like going back to the 90s or pre-2000 style, and a lot of people has been thrifting for those kind of styles.
Yeah, I mean, I know I mentioned earlier, like I started when I was earlier in high school, like before I was driving and everything. It was definitely just to like be more fashionable, find pieces that I liked. So I've kind of already done my spiel. I'd love to hear what Roxy has to say about it.
Yeah, I definitely started also in high school. I Like I've always been a person that cares a lot about the environment. That's just like the way my family is and how we've been raised. So that was
Mhm.
always a component of it. But similar to Virginia, the benefit that probably, and like, I don't know, this might be bad, but the benefit that probably motivated me the most was that was my sense of style. Like I just liked the way that thrifted clothes looked. I liked the way that, I felt unique. I knew that no one else was going to be wearing. It's
Oh
like
no, that
Macklemore's
is
song. It's like Macklemore's song "Thrift Shop." Like
no. There's
nobody else
honestly,
at the
yeah.
function is going to be wearing what I'm wearing.
I'm so glad you mentioned that because that was definitely something in high school that I totally took ownership of. Like I loved, and maybe this was like an ego thing. I've definitely
Mm.
grown up some since like middle school and high school, and especially beginning of high school. Knowing that you're gonna walk into a room, wherever that means, especially at my really small high school, my small community where I'm from, I was gonna be dressed in a very unique way, a way that
Yeah.
represented me perfectly, and I knew that it couldn't be replicated.
Mm.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was getting at when I was talking about the difference between thrifting and retail, where you have more like agency
Right.
over your fashion choices when you thrift, because there's not a group of people deciding what you should be wearing. Pretty much, I mean, there are still
Mhm.
like trends that come and go, but it's not like you don't go to a store and everything's already been picked out and laid out for you. You get
Yeah, it's
to
not
look
dictating your
through
whole
things
closet.
and find, and even like another motivator, thrifting is just fun. It is just so
Mm.
fun to look through clothings and find finds. It's like treasure hunting. Like it's
Right.
like me and Virginia, sometimes like it's not that we always maybe like need more clothing. But we just enjoy going to Goodwill and just looking at what they have because
Right.
it's just interesting.
I
Um,
get it. Like when I totally understand what you guys say about like you want to, for example, show up to a room or go to school and just be dressed fly, so fly. And I think thrifting allows that. So like, what's your process when you like get into a store and like when you're finding things that you want to find, and how do you like through the outfit that you pick, how do you use that to express yourself? Like what's the thought process behind it?
You can
I like
start
to
on this, Roxy. Yeah, I want to hear what you
I
guys say
just
about this.
I kind of just look for like weird statement pieces. Um, like I don't always go in with an outfit or a plan in mind of what I want to find. I just kind of look through until I see something. I'm like, wow, I've never seen something like this before. Like this is so unique. So that's kind of what I look for. I just go through and look for things that I know I wouldn't be able to find anywhere else. But if I'm also like, man, like I need, a basic piece, like, oh, I need a white t-shirt for this, or I need a tank top for this, or like I need some jeans. In those moments, I'll actively say, okay, I'm going to go to a thrift store and see if I can find it there. Before I'd go to, like Target or somewhere like that to go
Mm.
find that basic item. So thrifting for fun is more like, I'm just going to go and see what I can find. And then thrifting, like, not for necessity, because I don't want it to seem like it's a necessity to have certain items of clothing, but you know what I mean. Then
Right.
it's like I'll have a game plan in mind and I'll go to try to find something in my size.
Mhm. I know for me, a lot of times, like, yes, I'm on the same page with Roxy. You never know what you're going to find. And it's definitely, an exhilarating experience when you're walking in somewhere and you're like, oh my God, I just found like the coolest thing ever, because you wouldn't find that anywhere else. But I know for me, a lot of times I'm kind of going in, not exactly with a game plan, but like just to preface, like in high school, I was really into runway. I before getting into Wake Forest, like for anyone who knows me, you know how much I love Wake Forest. Wake Forest was my dream school. I was not anticipating getting in. I was actually planning on going to North Carolina State University and studying textiles. I was going to go in for
Wow.
business fashion management. Yeah, so I'm not even sure if I told you that, Will. Roxy knows that.
No.
So prior to Wake Forest, like that's what I was going to be doing and like pursuing in my life and like job field and whatnot. But so I love keeping up with runway. I love keeping up with designers, what they have coming out. What I don't love is spending money on something like that. Like there's nothing I think's cooler than like YSL's like winter runway shows, like the stuff like that. So, but I love being able to find pieces like mimic those styles, like what you just mentioned, like 90s Y2K. Like I do love keeping up with trends. And I love being able to find pieces that kind of like match those vibes, if you want to say. Like that might sound kind
Right.
of cringy, but it's true. But so I can kind of go in there like knowing kind of what feel I want, not exactly what particular item, but kind of like the vibe and like style I'm going for. Like that helped me not be so overwhelmed when, you know, there's rack upon rack of just like $2 pants. I'm not like I'm not freaking out.
Sometimes in the past, if I knew I was going to go thrifting, but I didn't really like, or sometimes if I feel like I want to revamp my style or I need inspiration, I literally just like will make a Pinterest board before I
Yes.
go.
Oh
or
my
like,
God. I use Pinterest so much. And that might
Yeah,
sound like so cliche, but I do.
yeah, I'll make like a style board and then I'll have like a vibe in mind. So when I go to the thrift store, like I'll like have things in my brain, I guess, that, and then if I see it, then I'll be like, oh yeah, like this is something that I saw.
Yeah. That's definitely where like my head's kind of at too.
So if that's the process, like, you know, when you're doing all of this, like what's the inspiration behind your style, I guess, and like how it all contributes to your overall vision in
Portraying ourselves to the world. I'm here for it. Yeah. I know for me, I'm a very upfront person. If anyone who's met me, you know that like what you see is what you get with me. Take it or leave it, like it or not. I'm very much myself. Whether or not I'd like to say I'm a confident person, but I don't want to seem like narcissistic. I'm very sure of myself. And
I'll
like what
say
I
it
just
so
said,
she doesn't sound narcissistic. Virginia is very confident and very cool.
Thank you.
That's plus one here. Yes.
Thank you guys. Thank you. But so I'm really big on, you know, accurately portraying myself to the world, whether that's you know, through jewelry, which I love jewelry. You can't really tell because I got a crazy pattern shirt on, but I have like 4 necklaces on that I love. I have rings on every day. I have you can't tell because I got, you know, my AirPods in right now, but I got a ton of piercings, and I love just being as much myself as possible visually. Not that I'm trying to like come across as like, I don't know what, like I definitely want to seem like a cool, like fun person, but that like is not the intention. Like I'm doing it just in a way, I don't know. I mean, I'm very intentional with how I do things.
It feels real to you, right?
Yeah, no, and I've actually talked to Roxie and like a lot of my friends about that. Like and it wasn't until like this past year that I realized like that was a quality about myself that I really valued. I'm very intentional with the way I live life, whether that's what I say to my friends or, I mean, like how I carry myself, like when I go shopping or something. So everything has meaning to me that I'm wearing. I don't just wear something like, oh, like whatever. Like I picked it out, like I love it, or there's like a story behind it. Like I mean, I could probably sit down and have like a whole 45-minute conversation about the shirt I have on, my 5 necklaces, and my jeans and shoes that I have on. Like I could say a thing and a half about it. But that's kind of the deal with me and how fashion means to me. And I want that to be, I think it's such a fun way to be intentional with your life, because that's what people first notice about you, when they see you as a person. So right. I also like, I don't know, that's why I think it's just such a very connected thing with people. Everyone's going to be wearing clothes unless like, you know, you're some fun place where like a nudist resort, you're going to be wearing something. Yeah. What are you going to be wearing? How are you going to choose to display?
Are you going to represent yourself?
Yeah. Show up for yourself.
My thought process is really similar to Virginia's. Like we've talked about how like both of us, we want to be displaying, or we just want to be true to ourselves in every way possible, whether it's what we say or what we wear, but we just want to be ourselves to the full extent, and clothing is an excellent way to do that.
Right.
One thing for me, I kind of feel like I'm really into art. I've painted like for years.
Roxie, it's like what she just did for me. She's not going to say this. Roxie is a phenomenal artist. She is a creator and artist in like the finest form, and everything she does is awesome. It's so awesome.
Thank you. So I see clothing and makeup as well as an outlet for creativity. It's not every day I'm going to get an opportunity to sit down and do a painting. I just don't have the time for that. But in the morning, putting together an outfit, putting together some funky makeup, that's just an everyday outlet of creativity for me. If that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. I think creativity is beautiful. It's something that I think can be brought into your everyday life, like you just said, putting on an outfit that it's way for you to practice or to show your creativity and to show your style. And
For
Yeah,
sure. And
I think, yeah, go ahead.
sorry, I was just going to say, to tie it back to thrifting, um, thrifting also encourages creativity.
mhm,
Like I said, you go into a store and everything's done for you. You thrift, you have to be creative about your choices and what's going to look good together. And you have to think about, okay, is this like ugly, or is it like cute, ugly? Or
Cool, ugly, yeah.
what can I pair this with? Or how can I upcycle it? I've
Mm.
been getting really into upcycling these past few years. So like, can I paint something on this? Can I cut this? Can I sew this? And it just like, it allows you to have so much it just adds more creativity to your life, or it forces you to be more creative in the outfits. You can, pick something thrifted and it will look ugly in every outfit except one outfit where it works.
You got to
And
find that.
you just have to learn to be creative in how you pair items and how you style items in a way that you might not have to do otherwise.
No, I think that's awesome. And like going off that point, that's truly, like, you said that in the best way possible. That was so eloquent. I'm also a very creative person, definitely in different mediums than Roxy is, but I still think of that as like a defining characteristic of like who I am. And it wasn't until I got to school and I was able to find those like-minded people in the sense they exist in a creative manner. I think that's the best way to put it. People like Roxy, who is an artist in every form. People like Will, who puts their heart and soul into everything, whether it's tea, or conversation, or school. It's people that are very intentional, very creative. And fortunately, I've been able to find more of those people this past year, especially in the freshman class. Me and one of my good friends, Elise, who is a freshman here at Wake Forest, we're actually starting a creative fashion page for Wake Forest called
Wow.
Wayward. And it's super cool. We're hoping to get stuff up and running like this coming week or two on campus. And so it's just like, it's a fashion page for Wake Forest, and we're going to be like highlighting sustainable fashion and just creators and small local creators, whether that's at our college or other universities in the United States, and just basically like celebrating individualistic style and just self-expression in every form. So we're going to be hopefully hosting like sustainable events on campus. We're going to be taking pictures of students and just like highlighting individuals throughout the week that are just, awesome with like the way they portray themselves on campus, whether it's an outfit or like jewelry or anything like that. So, I mean, that was kind of like a little self-hype, but please be sure to look out for that. I think that's going to be an awesome opportunity for other like-minded creative people to find their group of people on campus.
Yes. That's amazing. I'm so happy that you're starting out, collaborating with some freshmen with your friend on
Wayward.
Wayward.
That's what it's called. This was her idea. She told me her name is Elise. She's awesome. Elise, yeah. She reached out to me because we actually met. This is like such a 2020 thing to say. We met in a breakout room on Zoom over in my astronomy class. No, we were paired together, like work on something, and like if anybody has been in a class with me, I apologize. I talk a lot in a breakout room. That has been like my social go-to this past year in school. And immediately she was wearing like the coolest thing. She had bangs too. So of course I had to shout out like another girl with bangs. I was like, you look fabulous. Like I would love to be your friend. And basically at some point this semester, she reached out to me. She's like, hey, I know you're really into this. Would you want to help me get this started? So this is all her idea. And I'm just helping getting it out there, and you're definitely going to hype her up and help organize events. But I'm excited. I think it's going to be cool.
I think that's going to be cool. Yeah.
We're looking forward to it.
We'll definitely check it out.
If you have made it to this point in the podcast, wow, thank you. We definitely appreciate you for listening to all of this. And this is only part 1 to this week's episode. On Thursday, part 2 will be dropping. So please tune in for that, especially if you enjoyed this episode. See you then.